Gail Estella Survival Podcast. Where pain becomes purpose, no fear, no remorse. Say it again. Through the pain, through the fire, through the worst of my day, we made it. I found purpose in the breaking. Right there. Survival isn't a whisper. I know. Bro, if you listen, you survive. Still breathing, still alive. God never wastes the hurting. Every chapter had a rolling tide.
Gail Estella, and welcome to the Gail Estella Survival Podcast.
From pain comes purpose. No fear, no remorse. Survival isn't a whisper. Through the worst of my day. And the breaker isn't no whisper.
Hello, everyone. This is Gail Estella, and welcome to the Gail Estella Survival Podcast. Here's where we turn pain into purpose, because survival isn't a whisper, it's a roar. And before we get started, there are a few things I need from you right now. The first thing is, will you please go in, like, share, and subscribe to the Gail Estella Survival Podcast. Secondly, where are you tuning in from? I'm here in Aiken, South Carolina. Put in the box below, in the comment box below, where are you tuning in from? Are you following me on all of my social media platforms? If not, will you please do so at Gail Estella? And lastly, Through It All by Gail Estella. Have you purchased your copy yet? If you haven't, it's not too late. You can go to TrueVinePublishingCompany.org, Amazon.com, or anywhere books are sold. My guest for tonight. I met this young lady, I can't remember how many years ago, but I was working at Sheer Images Hair Salon, and I remember her walking in. I was working with Angela Williamson at the time. She was the owner. She said that we were going to be getting a new stylist coming in. And when this young lady walked through the door, her presence, it just stood out. I liked the way she was dressed. I liked her haircut. And then once I became more acquainted with her professionalism, I really, really admired it. And I really admire her now. I'm going to bring her in. Miss Katrina Renee.
Hello.
Yes.
Hello.
Thank you. Hello.
How are you?
Being here. I am well. How are you doing, sweetie?
I am amazing.
You look
amazing. Thank you. Thank you so much.
I like your color theme. My color theme. We're matching.
We matching. That's what God be doing. He be doing stuff like that.
Yes. And when I said I admired you then and I admire you now, I meant every word of it. And I just want you to know that before we get started, okay?
And I want to let you know before we get started, you're not about to bring no tears up out of me today. That's what we're not going to do today, Auntie. Because you have always told me that story. And, you know, I know we got to get started, but just hearing you say that, I've been hearing that so much, like my presence and, oh, you have this glow. And then when you come in the room, I'm going to save it for later. Okay. But I truly admire you as well. And I'm honored to be here today. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for being here. Let's start in the beginning. Let's go back to the little girl, Katrina Renee, and tell us about who she was.
All right. Let's go, Holy Spirit.
Yes.
So as a little girl, you know, I struggled a lot as a little girl with my identity, right? So, you know, my parents were young. My mom was very young when she had me. And I struggled a lot with figuring out who I was. I don't even remember trying to figure out who I was. I had just became very accustomed to being who I needed to be when I needed to be that person and to do what was required of me at that time. I don't have a lot of memories as a child, like childhood memories, because I had to be very mature, very responsible, very accountable as a child, as a little girl. I was very tough as a little girl. I didn't talk about myself a lot as a little girl. I didn't talk about dreams and aspirations. I just knew I needed to take care of the things that I needed to take care of. And I believe, well, no, I don't believe, I know that is a very large part of what God needed to rip off of me.
I want to interject for a moment. You said identity. You didn't have a true identity, so basically you were a chameleon.
Yes.
I was too.
Yeah.
I didn't know who I was. Where do you think that came from? Because you say you had to grow up fast. You couldn't enjoy being a child, and you had to be a very responsible person as a kid. So do you think that ripped away a lot of your innocence?
Now I can say yes. At the time, I didn't know what my innocence was.
Yes.
When you're a kid, the only thing that you know to do is to obey.
Obey. And adapt.
Mm-hmm. You know to do what your parents tell you to do.
Mm-hmm.
I will say this because I know my dad, he's very comfortable, and if he was here, he'll say it himself. But my dad was really, really hard on me as a kid. As a little girl, he was very, very, very hard on me, very tough on me. And I was fearful of my dad when I was young. So I had a lot of fear as a little girl. There was a lot of confusion as a little girl. There was a lot of isolation as a little girl. And I became very adapted to that. Me and my younger brother are 7 years apart. So when my little brother came along, he was something that God blessed me with to pour into. He was like my little baby alive. I had something to nurture. I had something, that, when I have these weird feelings, I can love on this person. I can love on this thing. He's innocent, and,
And you knew you were going to get the love back.
Yeah, I knew he loved me. Yes.
Yes. So did you feel loved as a kid, as a child?
I did.
Okay.
I did feel love as a child, but it was very conditional at times.
How?
So it would be, 1 minute, things are okay, and then the next minute things are not okay. Parents being parents and doing life as they know it and the best that they know how. You don't know what you missing when it's not there. You know what I'm saying? It's not like I had something to compare it to, or anything like that. I just always felt like it had to be more. And being around my grandmother is when I really, really, really felt like a covering, like protection. I didn't feel the need to have it all put together. I didn't feel the need to, make sure I do this right, or, there's something not so right on the other end of it.
Yes. Yes. So basically you were able to feel like a kid. You were able to feel like a child.
Oh, yeah. Now, going to see my grandmother in Chester, South Carolina when I was a young girl, it was the most beautiful thing. Like, it just, and my grandmother lived in this cement block house that her husband, my grandfather, he built with his own hands, and it was a place that was unfamiliar, but it felt so familiar, if that makes sense.
It makes a lot of sense, because I feel that we have these innate emotions and feelings inside of us, and it could automatically tell us when something is safe. And we don't know what it is, but it's a feeling that we can get when we walk into an environment or when we're around certain people. And I know a lot of times it comes with babies, they feel attached or detached from their parents, and that's when they cry, but it's something inside of us that knows that we're in safe surroundings.
Yes.
And that's what you felt walking into that cedar block house.
Yes, when I tell you, because growing up, I was a very spoiled kid, but just in a different way. Materialistically, I didn't grow up poor.
Yeah.
I've always had what I needed and more materialistically. We always had nice homes. We always had nice cars. I always had the clothes and whatever it was out at the time. My parents always made sure that we had those things, but to your point, when I would travel from Charlotte, North Carolina, down to Chester, South Carolina, and I would go into my grandmother's home, it was just this sense of peace there. She didn't have central air and heat. Like, it was either too hot or too cold in there. But when I tell you, in the summertime, I would go and visit, and it would be so hot. And, she had this one air conditioner in there. And I'm just like, I never complained, though. I never complained. I literally can go in my grandmother's house. I don't care. I didn't care how hot it was, and I could rest. I could sleep. And it was just so restful in there. It just was peaceful. And she was a hoarder. It was stuff everywhere. It was the unfamiliar for me. I didn't grow up like that,
Yes.
My mom is all about interior design. She's all about order. She's all about things not being cluttered. It's all about things being in order. You get what I'm saying? And
I do.
And going there, it's like she got a big old stack of quilts right here, and she might have, ain't no telling what else over here. There's some trail of flour from her making biscuits. It's just all the things. But
What's coming to my mind? When you said your mom, the interior designer, everything neat, everything structured, everything in place, opposed to your grandmother's house. Do you think it's safe to say that sometimes, I don't know, it would be an A-type personality, but certain type of personalities, when they have so much structure, that structure overflows into how their children can be raised at some point, and
Absolutely.
everything has to be right with them Everything has to
Absolutely.
be in place. Everything is so
Absolutely.
rigid. Yeah. And then when
Absolutely.
the house with the flowers on the floor, oh baby, just throw your shoes off, baby. Just be who you are.
Absolutely. That I
Yeah.
love that. I love that, Gail, because that is absolutely correct. Because sometimes too much structure, sometimes too much structure, like can really mess you up. Um, because what I've learned is that having too much structure, you don't know how to take it easy. You don't know how to just be. You don't know how to take that deep breath. You know, you always looking for the next thing that you got to do. And that's a great point because that is what overflowed into my life. I am a recovering perfectionist. You know, doing not doing well was not an option. You know, it wasn't an option, and it's like you either do good and or you know you gonna do good next time.
And so when you didn't do good, because you said something about being fearful of your father, what made you fearful of him? And what were the things that happened when you didn't do what was expected of you to do? If you feel comfortable talking about it.
Of course,
Okay.
I feel comfortable. I'm comfortable now because I've grown. You know, God has allowed me and my father to grow to the point to where he was able. Let me see, my daughter Chris. She was about 1 or 2 years old at the time, so this was only like 15, no, 16, 17 years ago. I remember it clearly. Me and my dad was on the phone for like 3 hours, and he apologized, and he was like, you know, I'm sorry for that. You know, I shouldn't have raised you like that, and you know, I deal with it daily, and I feel horrible about it. But I was fearful of my dad because he just was a mean man. You know, he was a mean man, and I just wanted my dad to love me and be proud of me so much, and I don't know why I did. You know, because you know my biological dad. At this time, you know, I didn't have a connection with him. I don't even think at that time I was really young. I didn't know how it all happened or why it all happened. I just know, you know, my mom met this man and, you know, he moved her from Chester, and before long he sent back for me, and I'm now in a whole totally different environment. And he said to me once, he was like, "You never liked me." He was like, since the first day I met you, you know, you just had this look on your face, and you know, you didn't want me to take you from your grandma, and I just felt like you hated me. I felt like you didn't like me, and I was like, I was a kid, you know, and but that's his truth, and you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. Did you
when
get a chance to get to know him before your mom got married to him? To build a relationship with him?
in so many ways, yes.
Okay.
My mom worked a lot. You know, my mom worked a lot. She's always been a very hardworking woman, and you know, my dad, he was more present during the day because my
Okay.
mom would work, and he didn't know how to deal with his anger. And this is something that I learned as a kid. I did not understand this. I actually grew to hate my dad when I was young, and you know, that caused me to grow into having resentment towards my mom. And when you don't understand what's going on, you know, that is that's where the enemy comes in, and he tells you exactly what you want to hear. And it's like, it go from this, and then it's like, I don't feel like nobody likes me. My own mama don't like me. My own dad don't like me. And then it's like, what did I do wrong? And, it's so many things that went through my mind. And it's like, oh my God, is my mom mad at me because she had me? And, she had me because my grandmother wasn't about to go for no abortion.
Yeah.
She wasn't born for that, so it's like, is there any type of resentment, that I don't have anything to do with, that I'm having to pay for? And, these are things that I started to discuss with myself as I got older. But as a little girl, all I knew was that I need that same love that I was getting from my grandmother.
Yes.
So it's like being in this place, and having this type of love. I can remember, it's funny because I have more memories of a little girl.
Yeah.
Being in that house with my grandparents. I literally can remember my mom trying to get after me, and I'm running to my grandma. I'm jumping. My grandma had some big boobs when I was a little girl, right? I mean, really, really, really big boobs when I was just a little girl. And I just remember running, and boom, like just into her chest, and she would grab me, leave my baby alone, and not understanding what all of that meant, but that feeling, it's like the Holy Spirit. It's not nothing that you can really explain, but it's just that feeling of comfort and safety.
Yes.
And being taken away from that and being taken to a totally new environment. And, I don't see, my little cousins. I didn't grow up around a lot of people. I didn't come from a very huge family on my mother's side, right? So it was me and my 2 cousins that my aunt had, and we were all kind of just right there with grandma. And so that look that I had on my face that he says that he saw when he first, met me, I can understand why. But, once you grow up and you realize that your parents are people, once you realize that your parents got souls and are out here searching just like you are, then, God uses the Holy Spirit to kind of turn things around, and that resentment turned into compassion. That resentment turned into, how to pray for my parents. And God is still doing a mighty work on us all. But I was fearful because my dad would hit me. My dad was very abusive to me. Like, and I say the word abusive only because that's what society calls it. But it was him looking for an outlet. And like I said, I was there, he was there. So it's like, you didn't do this right, then I'm going to make sure you do it right next time. You didn't do this, I'm going to make sure you do it this way. You didn't make good grades in school, I'm going to make sure you make good grades in school. It's one particular time that I can remember I didn't vacuum like he wanted me to. It's not that I didn't do the task. I didn't do the task how he wanted me to do the task. And, it just turned into that. And I just felt like nobody likes me here. Like nobody likes me here. You know what I'm saying? And there's nobody here but me and my parents. So I spent a lot of time to myself.
Did you cry a lot as a kid? Did you cry a lot during that time? Or did you read? What was your method of escaping other than your grandmother? Or did you have another reading?
Reading. Because at some point, it came to not going to see my grandmother was a punishment. Oh, you didn't do this, or oh, you did this, you're not going to church this weekend. So then that resentment, it really, really started boiling. Then, like, I hated my dad. Yeah. I love him with every fiber in my soul today. I loved him then, but I just hated who he was at the time.
And how he treated you.
I hated how he treated me. And it's like, I just want to do right. I just, you know what I'm saying?
Please.
Please, just love me.
Yeah.
Like.
Yes. And it's almost like being in an abusive relationship as an adult. You try to figure out, okay, if I don't wear my earrings, I'm talking about myself now. If I don't wear my earrings dangling, or if I keep my hair done a certain way every week, if I wear a certain type of clothing, if I don't, then it'll be okay. Then you won't get angry. Then you won't get angry enough for the abuse to start. So you walk around on eggshells, at least I did, trying to figure out what to do, how to do, what not to do. Mm-hmm. And it was stressful. And I can only imagine as a little kid how that might have felt.
Oh, yeah. It didn't feel good, but I will tell you this. I didn't know that it was not. I didn't know for a fact that this is not how it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Again, okay. Like I said, I didn't have anything to compare it to. So I just felt like it was me. I just felt like, you messing up, you got to do better. Okay, so next time I'm going to do it this way. And next time it's going to be perfect. And the next time it's going to be like this. And then only for now, I do it properly. And, there's never, any praise or any, you did a good job. Doing good in school. I was a great writer. I danced, I cheered. And it's like, I'm just doing these things, but it's like I never can impress them.
Yes. How was your self-esteem?
My self-esteem was horrible. He aided to that too. Again, I'm not saying anything that he won't contest to himself, but my dad, skinny, you look like a tomboy, you got big lips, ain't nobody gonna want you. It was a lot of things that was placed upon me that made me feel less than. Yeah. And it's not like I would talk about it. I just felt like, oh, well, I guess so. And, and it followed me through life.
Yes, it does. Mm-hmm.
My dad made sure I was tough. One of my first memories of him making me be tough was I was about 5 or 6 years old, right? I'm getting off the school bus. So in school, I was pretty much quiet, standoffish, because, my dad didn't, he didn't told me all these things. So I never felt pretty, I never felt soft. I just felt like I need to go to school and do a good job so I don't go home and get yelled at or beat on, whooped or hit or however you want to put it. I know I didn't like how that felt. So it's like every day I just need to get up and figure it out and make sure that I do a good job. And I got off the school bus one day. I was getting off the bus. I was sitting in the back of the bus, and my bus stop has came, and I'm getting off the bus. It was Westwood Apartments, right? And I got up out my seat, and I'm walking down the little aisleway on the bus. So it was this little white kid, right? His name was Timothy. I will never, ever forget. Timothy, if you out there. I will never forget Timothy. And he was a bad kid, right? Hyperactive, and I just would see this. And he, how people like You like this, and they have
It has a strap.
right. So he had this ring around his face right here from doing that. He just all the time, right? So I'm going down the little walkway, and Timothy gets up and like he gets up and he sucker punched me like when I'm walking off the bus, like knocked the air out of my body. So naturally, I ran to my dad. I got off the bus, and again, my mom worked a lot, so my dad was always there, right? So I got off the bus, and I remember dragging my book bag, and I'm crying, holding my stomach, and I couldn't even open the door to our apartment. When I went to reach for the door, my dad swung that door open and he snatched my book bag. And I'm looking up like, he did this to me. That boy punched me. He said, I saw what happened. Get your down there. And if you don't go beat him, I'm going to beat you when you get back in here. And I'm just like, and this is my first fight ever was a boy. Okay? So I said, okay, I dropped my head and I walk back down the steps. I go back down to the sidewalk and I see Timothy. Timothy still at the bus stop bothering people, just cutting up, just all over the place. Miss Gail, when I tell you I went up and I whopped out Timothy didn't have a chance. Because I was afraid of my daddy. I was afraid of going back in that house and not doing what he told me to do. So when I tell you I went down there and I told that boy tear up. Like, tore it up. And then when I went home, he was like, that's what I'm talking about. You don't let nobody take advantage of you, and you don't let nobody put their hands on you, and you don't do this, and you don't do that. And I just did. I'm like, okay, like,
Yeah. And it's okay. You're telling me don't let anyone put their hands on me and do that, but then you're doing it. So what makes them any different than you?
Right. So the thing is, so when that's a great question. Thank you, Holy Spirit. So I feel like that was a reflection of something that went on with him. Yeah, that's what I really feel like. It was a reflection of what went on with him. And, pardon me, I'm having a hot flash because I'm in that time of life, but I feel like that was a projection.
Yeah. 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 So I know you say your mom worked a lot. But, and again, if you're comfortable answering this question, did she or was she aware of the abuse that you were enduring from your father?
Well, see, I use the term abuse loosely, but that's what it was. Because, back then, I feel like that's how parents raise their kids. Like,
yeah.
They want you to do good. They beat you to their
kids. And some of them did, and some of them went to the extreme.
Some of them did that, but a lot of times it was to the extreme.
Yes, it was to the extreme.
What I learned concerning my mom was young, and my mom, she was going through her own thing, and that's where the Holy Spirit gave me compassion for both of my parents because, they surviving too. My mom had escaped a life in a small town, so she was very ambitious and she was very intelligent, always has been. And she was looking for a better life for herself and for me. And what I've had to learn is that, just because, there are shiny things doesn't mean it's a better life.
because it's a big house compared to the 1-bedroom house with the flower on the floor, doesn't make that bigger house better.
No, and that's what I learned. And God has been showing me that throughout my whole life. And the one thing I can say is that regardless of what I went through, it made me a better woman. It made me closer to God.
You said something about your father made you tough and you developed calluses.
Yes, I became very callous. So I used to cry. The only time I would cry was when I was hit, at that time. But I never remember just laying in bed and crying about my life or, why is this happening to me? Like, I don't recall. I would only cry, when, I did something out of line. I didn't do something that I was supposed to do. And, he was the disciplinary in our home. But it came a time where I became very callous and I didn't cry anymore. And he told me one day, he was like, I would hear him talk to my mom or somebody. He's like, she don't even cry. Like, what's wrong with her? She don't even cry no more. She crazy. That girl crazy. And it's like, I just had become so callous. Like, I just prepared for it.
And defense mechanism.
Yeah. So it's like, that's the only thing that I knew to do that I got a reaction out of him was not cry.
You're not crying. And so while we're still talking about your father, because we're going to have to do a part 2. So let's stay in this dynamics. You said about 16 or 17 years ago, you had a conversation with him. How was the relationship from the point, because you left home early. How old were you when you left home?
I was 15, 16 years old.
Where did you go, Katrina?
I went to Chester. So I got pregnant.
Okay.
And I was afraid. When I got pregnant, I did not know what to do. So I went to my mom. It's not like I hid it from her. I went to my mom and I'm like, I can remember being here in Charlotte. I caught transit. I went to the free clinic. They had these little pregnancy centers. Because at that time, pregnancy was the pandemic for us. Teenage pregnancy was just out of control. But I understand why that was too now. But the thing is, I went home and I told my mom, and I can remember her making me feel like it's okay. We're gonna figure this out. So I went in my room and I'm just all in my head. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I did this. I can't believe I let this happen. What I'm gonna do? And the guy, it's like I just didn't know what to do. And so I remember my dad coming home and my mom, she's telling him what's going on. And I can remember him saying, well, where's she gonna stay at? Because she ain't gonna stay here with no baby. And then the next thing I know, I was going to Chester. And, when I got to Chester, my grandmother would, I thank God for my grandma. She said,
did you feel abandoned at the time by your mom, abandoned by your father?
Yeah, I had a lot of resentment because, if my mother had said we're going to have an abortion, I would have did it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Or if he had said get in the car, we're going to get an abortion, I would have done it because that's how afraid I was of him.
Yes.
So,
and I want to go back before we move forward. You said it was a pandemic during that time, and you now understand why. Tell me what it is that you understand.
So I feel like at that time, that generation of parents, parents that were born in the 50s and the late 50s and 60s, they came from generations of people, who didn't have it all together. And they came from little or nothing, and they finally got something. So, their children, which is my parents, they felt the need to go out and overachieve because, I don't want the life that my parents have. I'm not going to be poor. I'm not going to be without. A lot of them, whether they was working all the time, they went off and had kids, and then they trying to do school. Crack bust out in the 80s. I was born in 1980. So, a lot of things affected the generation of kids. I feel like they came from that era because a lot of our parents, they either was overworked or they became addicts from the crack that was dumped into our communities. And, they were fighting these battles that they were fighting themselves, and we were left alone. I was a latchkey kid at 5, 6 years old.
Yeah.
It's just so
that's a big responsibility.
Yeah, like I had a key to go in the house. I knew how to clean up. I knew how to cook. If I'm hungry, I know how to feed myself. And I just had to be responsible. But also a lot of things were not spoken on. They were not talked about. It was just do what I say.
Yeah.
So I had to learn.
Yes. It was no learning curve there.
Yeah, and you can't ask questions, because if you ask a question, then who you talking to? You stay in a child's place. So it's like a lot of things were unknown for me, and the Holy Spirit had to raise me.
And do you think a lot of it is that when you said the word pandemic, a lot of young girls were looking for some type of love or affection?
Yes,
someone
definitely.
to make them feel pretty, someone to make them feel worthy, someone to just hold them, hug them.
I can see it now so clearly. I can oh wow, what you saying that I visually go back to Spar Middle School, Hardin High School, and us as young ladies, it's like, you got, the flashy things, the guys with the nice cars and the chains, again, 80s crack and came into the scene. People, now black people then found a way to make a whole lot of money, not realizing that they are destroying their communities and their families. But it's like, it's all these things, you can have these things. But our parents came from a generation of less things, not so much. So by any means necessary, I'm going to develop this type of life for me. I'm not going to be like my parents. And it leaves you in a place where they're so focused on that the kids get left by the wayside. And it's not intentional. I don't believe that it's intentional. But at the same time, it's like, I didn't talk about sex with my parents. When my period started, who came and talked to me and got me? My dad. I was at summer camp. I was super embarrassed, sitting in the gymnasium over there at Endley Park, and I just blood everywhere, and that's not something that my mom prepared me for. And it just made me feel nasty, disgusting, and didn't know what to do. But when she came home, she says, okay, this is what you do. This is that. But, I wasn't prepared for it. It was more reactive than proactive. If those conversations had happened ahead of time, then, maybe I could have been a little bit more prepared, or maybe I could have had a little backpack that had something in it, and, just protecting your little girls, And so I didn't know about sex. I just knew. Yeah,
they definitely talk about sex.
It's like, but then when you don't, then the enemy has a huge playground. The enemy has a huge playground when you haven't been poured into about who you are and what what you need to accept and what you don't need to accept, and how to create boundaries, and how to honor yourself and your temple. I didn't grow up in church. I didn't, my parents weren't sitting at the kitchen table reading holy scripture every night. You know what I'm saying? So it's like that covering that I
There
feel
was no baseline. Yeah.
But every time I saw my grandmother, she kept her Bible. Like when that pregnancy, even though it made me feel horrible, I was not upset about not having to live with my parents anymore.
Yes. That was an escape for you.
So it was like, I can figure anything else out as long as I don't have to be going through this no more. And being with my grandmother, she poured into me. She told me that I was beautiful. She made me feel something. I was just a blank canvas a lot of times growing up. I didn't know how to be anybody. I just knew what I needed to do.
This has been good. We're going to have to stop. We're going to have to end this conversation. And we're going to pick up because you had the conversation with your father. You found out you were pregnant. You had the conversation afterwards, of course. You found out you were pregnant. You moved back. So we're going to pick up with you becoming a mom at 16, getting pregnant at 15, becoming a mom at 16.
That was easy for me.
Yeah. And navigating through that because you had navigated. So basically you're saying you had navigated through the hard part. So
I mean, being a single parent, like everybody's like, oh my God, you got a baby. But I knew what to do with a baby. I raised my brother.
Yeah. And you knew how to love a baby the way that
I knew how to love. I knew how to love a child. I knew how to protect a child. I knew how to do everything that was needed, because I knew how to take care of a whole house. I've been doing that since I was 5 or 6 years old. So I've never struggled on how to take care of my kids from that perspective. I always knew how to make sure that they ate, they took a bath, they had clean clothes on. Like I knew how to do all those things because I've been being responsible since I was 5 years old.
And Katrina, I go down to Chester Middle School sometime and present empowerment, facilitating empowerment presentations. And this is the group of the 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. And so many of the teenagers would say that they want to have babies because they want to be able to love someone, to give the type of love to a child that they weren't receiving, and they wanted that love to be reciprocated.
Yeah, that's one thing I always said, like I would never treat my little girls like that. Like I never treat my children like that. Growing up at first, like with my sons, boy, I'm like, okay, what do I do? Once they got a little bigger, it's like, okay, I wasn't prepared for this part, So, but I definitely can relate to those young ladies. Getting pregnant was nothing that I was intentional about doing, but at the same time, when it happened, and I found out that my grandmother was not about to let an abortion go down, and that she pretty much said, I didn't make you have an abortion, you're not about to make her have no abortion. They heard a Chester to me. And, that's what my parents did. But, prior to that, I went through so many stages, especially as a teenager, like just trying to figure out who I was and who I need. I got involved with the wrong type of people, hanging out with the wrong type of crowds. And then, now it's at the point where the only time I get y'all attention is when I mess up.
Yeah. I understand. This has been good, Niecy.
Yes, Auntie.
Teenagers, so we're going to pick up teenager, the wrong crowd, and all of that goes back to self-esteem, self-worth, not knowing who you are. And we're going to talk about the importance of pouring those things, those attributes into our kids, how important it is. Because again, a lot of parents didn't know how to do that.
No, and that's where the compassion comes from. To be honest, I'm glad I was callous in a lot of areas, because being callous to people, and it grew me closer to God.
So with that, we're going to say this. I'm going to end in the fashion that I usually do, and just the part that we've talked about today. Yes, this is the Gail Estella Survival Podcast. Tell me 3 things that has helped that little girl Katrina survive until the 15-year-old mom, Katrina. 3 things that helped her endure and survive that stage of her life.
Isolation. My little brother, having him to care on and to love on, and, just trying to protect him, So isolation, protection, but me being the protector. Isolation, a protector, and music. Music helped me a lot. It carried me through a lot. Music did.
Isolation, protecting and loving your little brother, and music. We're going to talk about that some more, because that isolation one, a lot of times when our kids are isolating, that could be their survival mode.
Yeah, and it's a huge red flag.
We're going to talk about all of that.
God has brought me through so I can talk about it.
Yes, I'm glad. And we will. Okay.
Yes,
you have a good evening. Okay.
You have a blessed evening too, Auntie. Love you so much. Peace and blessings to the Gail Estella Show. Y'all make sure y'all stay tuned in.
Yes, ma'am. Love you. Bye-bye.
Bye.